Welcome back to the fourth and final video of our K27 RailPro installation. Here is a quick summary of what was wired up off camera. Right now we have all of our leads wired in. We took the existing wiring harnesses. We basically cut them right there, giving us some slack, but we cut them and then took all the stock circuitry out. We wired in our boiler lights, a cab light, a reed sensor for the actual chuff unit, and we'll get into that and show you pictures how that was all detailed out. And then we're going to clean all these wires up here before we button up the locomotive. And then we ran them all through the boiler here where you could see underneath. And we're going to actually get ready to install our smoke unit next, but we also want to show you that we ran in the headlight and changed it out with LED, proper voltage. And then we also put in class lights, so we have those wired in as well. Power all went into this small coupler here, which is just one of these guys. And you can get this anywhere on, on our website. I know that Robbie has them with RLD, so it's not a problem. You can get them, put them in with your order on our website. So you also have a fan, and that's just to help to keep the motor cool. But it also, the fan does dry out some of the, any kind of lubricant that you put in there, because obviously constantly air is blowing on it. So that's something to be mindful of when you do use that fan unit. Then we hooked up our motor as well, and we tied all those leads into the existing lines, which I mentioned earlier. Today we're going to be taking out the control boards or sensors that are underneath the engine that are tied into the circuitry on the bottom of the chassis of the locomotive. So we're going to open it up and remove those so that way we don't have any electrical interference when this person runs it on electrical layouts. We're starting with the front pivoting wheel of the locomotive, and I'm going to be having several different metal trays you can find on Amazon or Harbor Freight, so that way I don't misplace anything and I know how to put it all back. Okay, so here's the first one. I believe we can also take this plate off too. And when we put this locomotive back, we're going to be putting the snowplow on it versus having the, I guess you want to say running board kind of style. These are not glued, so that's a good sign. Sometimes they're glued, so you have to be careful with that part. The other parts that are very hard to come by are these covers of the cylinders. They just pop off, as you can see. And they have cylinders inside of there. But they're not easy to get off. And they're very, very delicate, so be careful. There we go. I'm just going to take this one off too, since we're taking it off anyway. Looks like the screws need to be replaced. I'll get a bigger screwdriver. Yeah, seeing a little bit of action, I guess. Oh. And get enough of the head out. You can also use like vice grips or different pliers to grab it and turn it the rest of the way, because the head is obviously stripped on this one. So we'll replace this screw as well as its brother on the other end before we put it all back together. It's always good to have extra screws on hand, just for this reason. You're going to find things along the way that are either old or broken, and they're going to need to be updated. Again, vice grips are a great tool here, but they're a little big, and so they'll end up hitting the plastic, so sometimes needle nose is your best option. So we're going to replace those. Pretty stripped out. And that's just as simple as it is. It comes right off just like that. I just want to make sure there's no top mount screws on this either. Yeah, so. There, got it. Pull those out. And so what I'll end up doing is just tying these off here as such. Now the reason why I'm not reusing this sensor is because of the voltage. It's going to conflict with the RailPro board, and I'm not using all their stock circuitry because I don't want it to have a problem with overheating later on. Also, our smoke unit is pulling most of the voltage, so I don't want to give any reasons for it to throw off the circuitry with the RailPro board and causing it to spike. This is a lower voltage, and it's going to recognize it as a current failure on the RailPro board. So a lot of the things that you figure out once you're building and designing products is testing the voltage. It's the #1 reason why RailPro doesn't work with other items, but you can use a RailPro board with Gundam dolls and helicopters and whatever, pretty much anything you want, as long as it's the same voltage. Doesn't have to be a train. Okay, and so what I'm doing is, I'm going to show this on camera, is they're taking the sensor, and then what we're doing is we're just basically putting it back inside. That way it gives the customer the ability to use it again if they want to, and it's still ready to use when the time comes. And then we're going to do the other side. And then we begin to put it all back together the way we want. Take these guys out. And it makes for a really clean install when we're all said and done. Just in case, if the customer ever wanted to put the original circuitry back in, they can. And we're leaving way more than enough slack to tie back in with new wires and soldering. Okay. And I know a lot of folks are kind of intimidated by the fact of the size of the engine. It's not something to be afraid of. It's a great working model that they have here, but just because it's a big engine doesn't mean it's hard to work on. It's actually fairly easier to work on. Just to be transparent about it. Once you take these parts off here, they become very, very fragile. So be aware of that. I don't know if they use cheap metal or what the case may be, but you can see, watch. And got it. It's very easy to bend. So be aware of that part. Let's try this one again. It's being a little bit of a bugger. Oh, it's not lined up. So the reason I took these bars out is because I had to get up the front of the cylinders. In order to take that plastic out, you could see how the bar blocks it from you getting and accessing to the wiring. So by removing these parts, that's how we're able to access the doorway. And then I'm going to stick this guy in. There you go. So for some reason, this side is being a booger based off the other side. doing that. It's like a millimeter. To the other side. Oops. There we go. There, got it. I think it's just a booger in general. Didn't get it lined up, and they won't work if it's not lined up properly. It won't go in. So you definitely want to get it lined up, otherwise it's not going to work. Okay, awesome blossom. Let's see about, I don't want to put that on just yet. There's some more wires in the back here, I believe. Yes, here. Okay. There's one for the motor. And you can do it from the bottom as well, or the top, but for me it's a lot easier for the top. And I can show you on the actual video just how easy it really is. It's because I got a lot of screws in there. I want to make sure I'm doing this correctly. So I'll put them back so I don't lose them. There's one more screw there. Okay. Lots of screws, lots of screws. So this is going to allow the bottom of the cage to come out. And these are those really, really tiny screws again, so you might want to get another tray to put them in if you don't have a clean work area. And this is an extra step. I mean, you don't have to do all this work if you don't want to. It's not necessary. It's just we like to do it for our customers because of the electrical pickup situation. But now you can see how the wheels are loose, and it's really those 4 screws that are holding it on there. I'm going to be taking this one off as well. And again, I can't stress enough how tiny these screws are. So be mindful of what you're doing with them. Because they're really hard and they're very easy to lose. And so this is what we're trying to get to right here. No, there's definitely different ways to do it. I mean, you can just cut the wires and be done with it. But what we're trying to do is take the part out so it can be reused again later on, so the person doesn't have to buy the part again. Again, it's not necessary, but we want to try to make it as easier for them as possible. Oops. And I think because of argument's sake, we're just going to pull these screws. Push to the other side, take those out. And you can see it's already coming out. Now these screws we're going to keep separately because we're going to put it in our box of parts for the actual resale of the circuitry. My fingers are too big, so I have to use these guys to get the screws. And so everybody knows what I'm removing is this is the track pickup that causes the power to go in, to be picked up and go into the locomotive. And by removing the screws, I'm able to pull it out. Those other two screws didn't come out. Of course not. Oops. It goes on my spokes. Mess that part up. For some reason this other side of the screws won't want to come out. There we go. And there we go. Okay. Working again. Perfect. One. And two. So far, there's no electrical conduit whatsoever being done in there, and you will rock and roll. And now what we're going to be doing is putting everything back together. So at this point, we're going to start working on our smoke unit, and I'm going to show you what our smoke units look like. Here, this is the reed sensor. It's very, very small, and as you can see, it's linear. But the only way to know that you're using the right side is the one with the 2 dots on it. So that showcases what side you're going to be using, or what is going to pick up your signal from your magnet. And here's a tiny magnet. I mean, so it's really, really tiny, so you could tell, like super small. It's very easily lost, so be mindful of that. When you just solder your wires to connect not only to RailPro, but if you're using Bachmann or whatever the case may be, you would just wire these and solder them together on either ends, and then cover it so that there's no contact making it through the wheels or any kind of your mounting. You can bend them. You can do pretty much anything you want. We'll be carrying these on the website as well. So if you don't see them on there, you can always just reach out and we will sell them to you there, but that's not a problem either. So anyways, this is the reed sensor. And you can see we already have it mounted down in here. I'll get this screwdriver. So we put it here, we mounted it linear. This actually had the pickups originally going this way and this way from front to back of the locomotive, so we just went across. You notice how we put the 2 circles facing up in between, and that is going to make contact with our axle here. So I brought this, and this one's already done for you so you could see. We used it on the plastic portion of the wheelbase for the Bachmann rear axle, just because of ease and access and time. I mean, I don't want to take all this apart to get to the front wheels or anything like that. These pop off all the time. So it's preferred to go into one of the middle wheels because they're always on the locomotive. And then this one can sometimes bounce off, but in the best interest of time, we did it with this one. So you can see it's not rocket science. It's just a little magnet that's been used Loctite on the plastic, and it worked fine. So I'm going to put this back together for you and show how simple it is. Now that that's mounted down in there and the lines are already soldered, I got to make sure I'm putting it in the correct place. And I'm so blind here. Where is my flashlight? Okie dokie. So, gonna make sure you get this right in the hole, and then it drops down in here. Okay. There we go. I was like, I'm missing something here. Where's my stuff? So this has to go down in there. Okay, let's try this again. Oops. Now, it has to be directly lined up into that hole, otherwise it's not going to work. So seeing the hole will make a big difference. There you go. Okay. And basically, I'm just putting 1, 2, 3 back into position here, shown in the previous videos. Oh, sounds like somebody's on the website. And now, as you can see, our rear spring axle is back in place, turning, and as it does, it'll be right over the reed sensor. Let me tell you what we're doing here with our reed sensor. This is actually really cool. These reed sensors are so small that you can put them in multiple places, but we're connecting the positive and the negative just as you would of any other electronic device in the world. And then we shrink a sleeve with all of our soldering with any kind of electronics, but this one here is going to be getting contact with the outside elements. So we want to make sure that there's no metal that's exposed, so rusting and those wheels will pick up stuff along the way. But in here, as you can see, we're basically feeding the lines through the bottom of the locomotive, and we'll go ahead and attach that to the actual structure of the locomotive, or framework, if you will, where these was actually used for the contacts of the pickups before. Here, you're gonna have to use some kind of adhesive. I like to use Loctite, but you can use JB Weld and a bunch of other different, whatever your adhesive of your choice. Let it dry, make sure it's secure. As you can see here, I came back and it was not long enough, so I ended up getting a heat gun, but that can also demagnetize the unit, so you want to be careful about that as well. I tried air and heat, and just to speed the process up so we can get going with the installation. Now that I have both of them wired in, I had to put it and pair it with our wiring diagram, and just to save time, and I had to go back and double check all of our wires multiple times. So that's definitely something you want to be mindful of. So the next step that we're going to do is we're going to be assembling our smoke unit. But what we did is we took the stock mount out of the boiler, so that way we can put our new 3D printed smoke unit mount inside of the unit, or the locomotive, excuse me, by the train grandpa, who's kind enough to design one. But I have the smoke unit already taken apart so you could see everything here. The insides of the unit, the casing's made in Korea. Circuitry in Utah, and then all the smaller stuff comes out of China. And then we can put all this together. And as you can see, there's plenty of holes for ventilation and everything else, but I need to put this guy in there first, which is a mount that allows us to put in a tube for the actual unit. And then our 3D printed mount, as you can see. And then I'll explain to that a little bit later, but you can see that there's clear openings for everything. And this is a heat resistant material. ESA. Oh, excuse me, ASA. And I don't think that this is going to be long enough, these screws.
It's a tight fit.
Oh, yeah. I say so. tight fit here. So So now that we have our unit secured to our new bracket, this has been specially designed for the actual K27. So this is not necessarily going to fit for everything or every single unit, but they're pretty amazing. And I'll show you why. I mean, it's been detailed out, it's been calculated, so that way we can fit in perfectly and it doesn't bother anything. And we're going to show you just how awesome these are. You just got to squeeze the wiring past it. Got gummy fingers here. Okay. And then we can turn, and there you go. So you can see how the holes are perfectly aligned on the back end, and those are good to put in just to hold it. Don't tighten it down because you're going to have to adjust it. But you can see how quick they just go in. I mean, it's just awesome to have everything dialed in for you, and it just makes it easier. Now we're going to be able to mount those and position them accordingly, but I'm going to just get the rest of the screws that I need to mount the boiler in position, and these arms here from our mount will be mounted in there, and that will be perfectly lined up with the smokestack. I'll be back here with you in a second. Okay, so now, you know, with them lining right up and then putting the screw right in, you can just see how easy it goes in. But these screws are necessary because what it does is it allows the mount to be secure to the actual frame, so it's not going to move around. You got to understand the smoke unit itself, casing, is extremely hot. I mean, it's like just shy, I think, of 400 degrees. So it's not like it's cool or stuff can touch it. It needs to be addressed properly. Obviously, not everybody's going to have a custom mount made for their train. But this is one of the reasons why we don't sell these units, and we install them ourselves, and we make units for the train. And this is going to be a nice addition to anybody's collection because let's get this thing on here. Because it's one of a kind. And that's really one of the things that when somebody has a train done at the Reale Railroad Shop, you know, it's one of those things that you're not going to get again. It's done by myself, or some of our technicians will come along and they'll do certain steps, but mostly every train that we've done, all over 2,000 units, are done by myself. So we're going to clean this one up because I don't want any wires to get anywhere near this casing, because what happens is those wires will melt and those lights will stop working. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is pulling this back out and bringing it over to the side as such. because I don't want them touching that unit. The other thing I don't want them to do is get in the way of the filling of the fluid when you put them in the wire, or not the wire, the smoke fluid. You don't want the wires to be in your way. And so we need to ensure that. And I think I'm going to do it to the side here so that everybody can see what is being done. And that fits right on in there. And then what we're going to do is basically secure it to the side here. Actually, you know what? I think that it might be better to do electrical tape on that one. We're going to plug in our smoke unit now. You can see it's very simple. These connections are very, very fragile. What we learned over in time, once we get them in position where they need to go, they have locking mechanisms to hold them in place, but for some reason the wires don't like to stay in these plugs for some reason. The other thing that we have to do is make sure that they are in position. Even though it looks like it's in, it's not necessarily the case. Yeah, see, so it pushed down in there a little bit more. And just to make sure that they're there, I'll most likely put a dab of glue in there to make sure that it's making connection, and we'll test everything as well. Now there's no power going on to the engine at the moment, so we know that that's safe. But I am going to clean up the wires here and just make sure that they're secured there before we put everything back together. Well, welcome back. Today we're going to tie in our smoke board with our Revo smoke board so that the RailPro unit or module could communicate to our smoke unit. I'm not sure if most people know, but the Revo smoke boards can be used with other systems besides a Revo system. So their boards are set up where you have a power signal going into the unit, and then you have two, or you can power two units. You have to be mindful of the voltage though. And then you have a signal wire to control such a unit. So what we're going to do is only use one of the signal wires because that's what RailPro does. And then we're going to run it on a light signal as well as the read sensor. So what we do is we separate the wires. And it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do, but and I'm teaching you the way I was taught, so hopefully you know that everybody in every system will have different parameters that you have to go by. But for RailPro, it works this way. And these are available on our website as well as RLD Hobbies. So you can feel free to pick yours up there. They're not expensive at all, fairly inexpensive actually. So it's definitely something that you can use there. Then we only have one smoke unit on our system here. So you would have an extra line. Most people either zip tie them together, but I kind of cheat in a way, and I'll show you how to do that just after I pull this one off. And I just wanted to do it on camera so that way everybody knows what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and you could use it later on down the road. Okay, so that's good enough where we can get it closest to the board, and you just trim that off. We're going to be using the white wire here, and we obviously don't need that big of a wire either. Now this again is our signal wire. So this is going to be telling the signal to communicate with our smoke unit. And I believe we have that wired, and we'll show you a diagram later on our smoke board. What the wires and so on and so forth are all dialed in on. I think these are called calipers. Amazing. Just speed everything up so much easier. When you are soldering, make sure your line is turned off, or power for the engine. Okey-dokey. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it has two capabilities of running two units, excuse me. So we're going to keep the one unit, and I solder the lines together. So I'm just basically cutting this end off. Leave enough so you could reuse that one if you wish. And then, since we're not using our second unit, we're going to cheat by just simply cutting that one off and running our power source into the board and just plugging that in. Now this will go to our power source. For our particular unit, we run it direct, so meaning this is going to go to a direct feed of the power, getting constant power all the time. There's two ways you can do it. You don't have to do it that way, but I do it that way because it can potentially drain your battery long term. But if it's turned off, it will not. So it depends on the location of your switch and how you're wiring. So when the unit is on, it is pulling power, but it won't go on until we get the board, or we select it on our remote control to be on. So I'll show you how to do all that when we get into it. We're going to wire this up off camera, and we'll be right back with you. Okay, now that we got the smoke unit all dialed in and wired up, we're going to do a quick test on camera, and it's pretty cool, but I always recommend to do that before you put everything back together, because who wants to put it all back together and then have to take it all back apart again? So we're going to turn it on. And go Locomotives, K27. And we've already done the programming on our remotes, but we're going to turn this over because we don't want it to rip a hole in the foam. We'll just do basic functions like bell, whistle, forward, backwards. And cab light goes on. Front light works. Glass lights work. Backlight. Okay, and then the most important thing, smoke. Yep, we got smoke. Ooh, that thing's cooking. And you can hear it. So I can't wait to get that thing going. So that one's done. And so now what we're going to end up doing, and we'll do it off camera, is put all these back together. And we should walk that process. But also be careful when you pull these things out. They're little buggers. so that you can put the units back together accordingly. So again, we'll do that part off camera. We'll come back to you at our final assembly, and we'll go ahead and power everything up with sounds and go from there. Okay, we're going to give her a quick start up here and just check her out. See, make sure she's all working.
All aboard! Looks like we have a crash up ahead. We need to stop. Hey, get off the track!
Thanks for watching, and keep an eye out for our next shop video.